Okay, I'm gonna do a little bit of a recording for this game again because, well, first of all, the first time that I did a recording of this game, I kind of scuffed the audio a bit. I didn't realize that my microphone volume was so low, and like the game audio itself is like ridiculously high. Um, so I'm gonna do a little bit of a re-recording and see if I want to upload it again. But yeah, I'm not really gonna talk too much about the game itself, this game itself, because I think the gameplay is pretty self-evident, and everything about it is like extremely self-evident. Like the most I could probably say, or like I could probably just summarize this as like what what everyone in the past, like for the past like 2 decades, wanted from like a platformer, 3D platformer parkour game. The unmet expectations of something like Mirror's Edge from like a decade or two ago, realized by indie game developers for the most part, something like that, and also like the level design, mega structure stuff, blah blah blah, things like that. Um, I'm not going to talk so much about the game itself because I feel like this game alongside White Knuckle, something like White Knuckle, um, feels like I prefer I prefer like yapping about random tangents and other things not directly pertaining to the game as much itself. And so that's probably what I'm going to do. There is something about like kinesthetic games and talking about like random stuff on my mind that I really enjoy. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play this level actually. And so I instead want to talk about a visual novel. Well, yeah, okay, one visual novel that I've been reading today. It's called Cache, and it's from the same team that developed or created the game Tear Ripple, um, Paper Girl Chain, and a bunch of other stuff. But those are like the two that I can remember off the top of my head. And yeah, it's a very, I can really sense that it has a very enduring quality to it, format, and I'm looking forward. It's been a while, but I'm really looking forward to completing it or going through it again, because I think I'm pretty early on in the narrative. I think I feel like I got done with like the first part of it, and yeah, there's a lot on my mind regarding the story, the setting, the premise, the atmosphere. And the funniest part is that the developers or the writers know this, and they have characters that are like, hey, if you need some time to just like take a break and digest things, go ahead. And then they'll like force quit the game for you, which is kind of funny, but a little bit intimidating as well. Um, and so yeah, I'd like to, I guess I'd like to start off by um, by going over the initial premise, or at least from what I'm picking up on, uh, and that is that it's I would say it has elements of meta fiction slash narrative and realism and fantasy and all sorts of things like that. But it starts off with a character in the basement of a library, and then two characters kind of fish you out of the basement and then plop you into the middle of the library reading space. So from that point on, you kind of chat a little bit, and pretty quickly you get absorbed into the world of acrylic, what was it? Something acrylic, painting acrylic sky or something like that. Um, and I really like what they're doing here because it feels like it's sort of taking like a step back kind of approach towards things. And I mean, it would be something like a movie. There was a movie that I saw recommended some time ago where it features like like filming the director directing a movie, and and like everything that kind of goes that's involved with that, I guess. Another thing I feel that can be slightly analogous to the premise is something like category theory, perhaps. I've been getting a lot of category theory recommendations on my algorithms for some reason, even though I'm not like that into that side of things as much. But I like the basic idea of it and how it's like a grouping of different fields of maths, and it's primarily rooted in theory, I guess, but then there's all sorts of speculation that there are like there's like more directly traceable practical usages of this kind of field. I mean, I'm surely there is already. It's just I think the ability to detect it, or the capacity to spot or detect the effects of or like emitted from the field of category are just not as distinct, I guess some could say, as something like applied maths used in like technology or something, or like accounting or finance in the finance world, or things like that. But anyway, I'm kind of going on a weird tangent here. Cache is really neat in that way because I think it knows it's where I think it has a sort of a level of awareness for like where it's at, I guess, so to speak, on itch.io specifically. I see it as a game that, or VN or title that has a home in itch.io first and foremost, and like on social media website platforms and stuff like that. And I think it knows that because there are a lot of visual novel titles out on itch.io now, and I don't want to be disparaging by any means. I don't really have that much of a preference or like or dislike towards most genres or things like that, but it is a little bit, it does get a little bit samey, I guess, when a lot of the featured titles on itch.io, for example, are like dating sim simulator featuring like either like a very fluffy, cutesy sort of presentation, or something that has like takes psychological twists and turns and has elements of like gore or horror or things like that. And yeah, so I think Cache knows where it knows the platform it's existing on. The writers know the platform that they're on, and I think they've opted to head into a direction that's pretty simple but effective, which is to take a step back, so to speak, and kind of I like how they do it specifically. That's why I think it stands out, which is setting it in putting it in the premise of a library, and it's like it's like photographs of your local town library or something, maybe. Um, and yeah, in that way, it allows the reader and the writers to explore a lot of different genres, but also a lot of different mediums and modes of expressing written stories. And well, written stories also including like audiovisual elements as well. And so it's really neat that way, because I feel like on one hand, I am speaking from experience from earlier. I was pretty engrossed in the story. Well, both premises. If I'm choosing to like, if you're choosing to like make clear distinction between the two. So one, I'm already pretty engrossed in the story of existing in this like library where you have like these two cartoon anime looking characters, providing like sort of like a meta narrative commentary kind of, but not in a very heavy handed way, and in a more casual sort of chit chatty way. And I like that. And then secondly, I like the the second novel that, or the novel that they presented within the library, which I would characterize as being a kind of like a young adult fiction novel with elements of sci-fi, dystopia, and realism, but it's overall sort of like a mundane, melancholic, rotting tone, but not like bed rotting, more like more like everybody sort of wistfully fading away kind of thing. Anyway, so I was very much engrossed in that premise as well as I started reading it. But the thing is, I think it helps that, or it's not. It doesn't help. It's very much intentional, in my opinion, that the starting premise is the library, where it kind of forces the reader, not forces, but it encourages the reader to kind of contextualize the second story, from a distance, or to read the second story from a little bit of a detached perspective. So like throughout this, second story, within like a semi-dystopic, realistic novel kind of thing, there is something in the background, at least in my reading of it, where I'm like, wait, this is still within the library of like a local town, and yeah, this is just like one genre of many genres and one method of expression, among many modes of expression. And I think that it's useful to approach stories or a premise like this, because I think I am a little bit interested in writing. Admittedly, I don't really have that much experience, but I admire it from a distance. And I think it's fun to sort of like pick apart aspects of the second novel, or the novel within the library, and like pick apart, or not pick apart, but look at elements of the second novel that I think are effective and are engrossing and have some sort of like captivating, are somehow captivating, I guess, or creates a sense of immersion, I guess, is maybe a better way of describing it. And I don't think these things are like incompatible, for example, because I think I feel that a lot of people, not a lot of people, but some types of people want immersive experiences and not to have like a sort of fourth wall meta narrative kind of thing always in their face about it. And some people just want to, I don't want to say indulge, because that just doesn't seem correct, I think some people want to look for a little bit of healthy escapism, I guess, in from their day to day or from whatever their stresses and stuff. So sometimes it could be really neat and engaging to to be immersed in a very like captivating story, like a fiction or folktale or things like that. But I think it's more. I think it's just, at least for me at this point, it is more interesting now when it feels like there are kind of like parallel threads happening, where I can feel like I am still engrossed and immersed in this in a particular setting or story, but I feel that it's also possible for me to kind of like in the moment take a step back and appreciate why this story feels so compelling to me, and maybe there are like there's like a specific prose that they're kind of using, or maybe there's the characterization is like effective for whatever reason, and maybe they just approach dialogue in a very natural kind of way, or maybe like the setting itself is very fantastical but has elements of real life that seem sort of apt or applicable as well. And I think that's probably one of the main reasons why I'm having a very good time reading Kashe currently, and I feel that the title of the story is also aware as well, and I feel like the title Scrambled would probably hint at something, but anyway, yeah, really compelling, really cool. I'm excited to go over it again and finish the rest of it. You know what? It's one of those things where I really felt like I didn't want to do, but I think I might honestly make like something like a video essay, but I'm not going to title it that or make any mention or reference to that idea. I have to start thinking of a way to like present something that I feel is really neat or compelling without immediately going on the like 22-hour long video essay like format that is so that seems so prevalent for the past like decade or so. I kept thinking today about like online video essays and the usage of the two words and the, so you can literally just do like noun and the something of the something, like highway overpasses and the nostalgia of early 2000s piss filter games or something like that, and then you can just do a little bit of editing and then call it a day, and then yeah, that's it. But no, I don't think a video essay is appropriate for something like this game, and it's also another thing where it's a weird thing because like perhaps an indie band or musical act that you feel is that somebody could feel is very neat or cool or compelling, there's a sense of wanting to gatekeep it because knowing knowing that this band or musical act, for example, could reach a larger audience, um, some fans know that, like, or understand that it can very much change the trajectory of the artwork or the music or the expression into something a little bit more commodified, I guess, or widely presentable. Not that that's always a bad thing. It's just I think there's always a sort of gauging, a tension between fans and artists, where it's sort of gauging when the artist should sell, quote unquote, like sell out, or try to branch out into like a wider audience. And it's not easy. It's not always a very clear cut, like, way of gauging that, I guess. And I feel that too sometimes with my own drawing, for sure. And so I think, but at the same time, I think with the nature of the internet, for example, and how easy it is to, in theory, I guess, make different accounts and kind of like start over, so to speak, I don't feel that there's that much compelling reasons to like really heavily gatekeep some artists. And also at the same time, I think this team that have made this title and Tier Ripple and whatever Paper Grow Chain are at the point where I don't think they necessarily brand themselves, I guess, as like a hyper niche, like internet artsy writing project team or whatever. If they really wanted to, and they could, and I'm sure I mean they might even, but it's one of those things where I just I feel like it would be well, okay, I think the thing is that Kashe and something like Tier Ripple, to me, feels like they invite discussion really easily about a lot of different topics, especially pertaining to like the internet and onlineism and things like that. But also knowing that there's more to it than that, and to not obviously disqualify or discourage all sorts of influences, including that of like IRL stuff. I don't know why I worded it like that. And yeah, so I think Kashe would be really cool, because, or doing a video on Kashe would be really neat, because it feels like it could open up discussion on really neat topics and compelling areas and things like that. Here, I'm actually gonna look online now to see if anyone's done, because I did one video on Tier Ripple that has no views, so I don't think it matters anyway, because I just don't feel like there's that much of an audience, widespread audience for this kind of thing. But I'm just gonna look on YouTube, for example. Tier Ripple. No, there's nothing. There's this. There's my read along of it. Tier Ripple visual novel. No, that's not exactly the same thing. I did see one reading of Tier Ripple from another account, but I don't know where it went. Tier Ripple reading. Yeah, no. And also, like, the search is just so weird now at this point. What about Kashe? It's Koshe. Hmm. Yeah, I don't really see anything when you search it up at least. And I don't think. So yeah, there are some people doing like sort of like blog posts, I'm guessing. Like written descriptions. No one's really doing a video. So I'm wondering if I should do a video or not. Um, yeah, so a lot of people are opting to write about it instead, and that's really cool. But I feel like for me, I tend to verbalize a little bit better, or at least it feels a little bit more spontaneous to me. When I'm writing, I feel like I'm overthinking things a lot and going over word choice and usage and really like carefully considering things, which isn't a bad thing, but I think there is something about providing kind of like live impressions, like live vocal impressions that 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 allows for a little bit of like spontaneity, I guess. Because even here, I was like playing some random, not some random, like a 3D platformer game that I really like so far, and I feel like it's when I'm like writing, for example, it's just so insular and concentrated and like nearsighted. Not that it's a bad thing. It's just the medium itself is so focused, and whereas I feel like when I'm like just talking and like browsing the internet or playing some random game and talking about something that I like, it can sort of create, it has the possibility, I guess, of creating some some unexpected paths or routes, I guess, so to speak. And yeah, hopefully this video conveyed some of that. I'm not sure if I'm going to release this, honestly, just because it's very wordy, and I feel like I was just kind of like struggling for things to say, or like think of like how to say things. Um, I'll think about it. But yeah, that's it for now.